The next question is another foreign policy question, and we're going to start with you, Edward. How do you prioritize which foreign ally needs our support first, and how would you advocate for them in Congress or build a coalition in Congress to support that ally?
Hopefully the ally is a friend. Because sometimes, because of the power, the almighty dollar, they pretend to be our friend. And they take the money and they still stab us on the back. So we have to do what? Call it screening, make sure somebody you want to get in bed with before you hand them the dollar. Because right now, we're acting like Santa Claus, giving out money to everybody. Excuse my French. Excuse me. Handing out money, and then they turn around and do what? Harm us. So the priority has to be, who is our friend? And we're going to test you for a period before we give you anything of American resources. Because right now, they'll love our money. Our dollar is the store of wealth. It's one of the strongest currencies. Everybody wants a piece of that. And so they're going to pretend. So it's like, going out on a date, and she doesn't really like you, but she wants your money.
I think we covered a little bit of that earlier on how much money we're actually giving away, but the question was, which ones of our allies would we focus on? Well, number one, I would focus on Israel because they seem to be the ones that have our interest in the Middle East at hand. We've contributed the most money to Israel in the form of military aid, and it seems to be working. Number two, I would give money and do business with people that do business with us and make that. And for me, I'm sorry, but everything kind of comes down to money with me. It's the businessman in me. But I'll tell you what, there's a lot of answers in that. I would support the countries that have the most potential to do business with us. In addition to that, there's humanitarian aid that I would probably, if it was up to me, I would give more indiscriminately than that. But trade partners are part of foreign policy as well, and I don't think we look at it that way. The Trump administration put together what we call deal teams. They went around and they tried to do business with countries. That's where it starts.
Thank you.
To me, Israel is our number one concern because we've got a lot of great allies in the world, but we don't have to worry about Australia being invaded anytime soon. Israel is surrounded by countries that want to do them harm, want to wipe them off the face of the earth. And to me, Israel is more than an ally. It's family. And this was brought home to me very personally about 15 years ago. I had a business partner in Tel Aviv, and while we were on the phone, he said, "Darrell, excuse me, the sirens are going off. I've got to take my family to shelter." Very matter of fact. And as Brad alluded to, there were more than 3,000 missiles lobbed at Israel last year. And we have to make sure we keep funding for Iron Dome improvements because Israel is right in the middle of a bunch of countries, some with nuclear weapons that want to wipe it off the face of the earth.
Well, something useful that will happen if I'm elected to Congress. I speak Farsi, so that might be useful on a congressional convoy if we go down there. But they might not like what I have to say. So, here's the deal. Israel, number one by far. But also at the same time, not only is it Israel, we have to also look at the battles of tomorrow today. It's cyber, too. We've had cyber attacks on our country right now. We need to work with our allies in Israel. I will allocate funding not only for the Dome, but also for us to utilize it, just like as you look to business, where can we also benefit? I also don't think Saudi Arabia, MBS and those guys killing Khashoggi and the Turkish embassy, I take kindly to or likely to. As the new generation of Republican leaderships, we have to evaluate all of our relationships across the board. I'm not going to make Saudi Arabia richer. I'm not giving handouts to other countries. And we need to look at who has our back. Did Saudi have our back in Afghanistan and Iraq? No. But we give them the money, just like Edward said. So we're going to reevaluate it, but stand by Israel at all times. Thank you.
Obviously, the common theme here is that Israel is our ally. It's our oldest and strongest ally in the United States. We were actually the very first country to recognize Israel as a country. So it's very important we maintain that relationship. But looking at our other enemies, like I said, Japan is a good counter to to China, and they just signed a mutual defense pact with Australia. Strengthening those ties can help keep our enemies in check. And if we can get Ukraine into NATO without starting World War III, I think that's an excellent thorn in Putin's side to keep him in check and keep him from expanding any more westward and halt his aggressive stance he's had on Europe his entire reign in office. So really, it's our traditional allies that we should continue to support and back, but like the other candidates have said, only the ones that are actually out there helping us, not the ones that take our money and then try to stab us in the back later on.
I agree with this theme. Our number one ally on the international stage is certainly Israel. The bond between America and Israel will never be broken. I supported the move of the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and I am in favor of making it larger and more beautiful so that people in the United Nations get the point. I am totally against Iran and their terrorism that they are unleashing against Israel and Saudi Arabia, using the Palestinians and the Houthis as their proxy. I stand with Israel, my campaign will stand with Israel, and I will stand with Israel in Washington, D.C., mark my words. I'm also a fan and I support the Abraham Accords, but that's what you get when Biden leaves. Mohammed bin Salman was going to sign on to it, but he doesn't know what he's getting in Biden, so he's pulling away. If we have a strong leader, we can pull them in. Thank you.